Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Through the Fire and the SBN Small Business Network podcast. I am your host, Ryan Wickline, and today we are joined by a very special guest. He is a talent agent and performance mindset coach, Dr. Albert Bramante. How you doing today, Albert?
I'm excellent. How are you doing, Ryan? Thank you so much for inviting me.
Hey, I'm very interested to dive in this subject because I work with athletes all the time, so I understand how like people that like performing in that performance like for actors and actresses can struggle with the same stuff.
hmm Absolutely, and it's very similar group on certain levels. So very similar archetype, and they go through a lot of the same performance issues, blocks sometimes, and just a lot of stage fright overall, especially with actors. So
So the number one question the audience is probably wondering, who is Dr. Albert Bramante?
Well, I've been a talent agent for the past 21 years. I work in New York City. That's where I'm based out of. I have an office in the city, and I represent actors for film, TV, theater, commercial, print, and voiceover. And I've been doing that since 2004. I also have a background in psychology. I have a PhD, which I received in 2015. And I work my area of expertise in the coaching expert area arena is self sabotage and overcoming self doubt and imposter syndrome. So it's really those self imposed limitations, how a lot of times we hold ourselves back. And I got into this work because I love working with actors and just creative people in general. And it's been a space that I've always been a part of for so many years. Even when I was in high school and college, I was very involved in the drama clubs. I took some acting classes. So I became very interested in the performing arts arena. Even though I was really bent on studying psychology, initially I was going to be a clinical psychologist. And, my goal was to open a practice and strictly be a clinical psychologist. But I became more interested in the performative side of things when I started becoming interested in the performing arts and I started working with actors. That I kind of shifted gears from clinical to more performance mindset. And so that's been like my area of focus for the past few years. I wrote a book in 2024 called Rise Above the Script, which again deals with self doubt and mastering self sabotage for performing artists. So that's sort of who I am in a
Yeah.
nutshell.
What led you to even start to become a talented agent?
Well, I had, like I said, some rough inklings when I was in college that I liked acting and performing arts. So right after receiving my master's degree, I started working in New York City in social services area, totally unrelated to acting. But then 9/11 happened, and so I started helping out with 9/11 organizations, and then I started help be working alongside of artist advocacy group, actors groups, and it kind of got that kind of bit my interest again into acting from college. So initially, I did like almost everybody does in the industry. I started off as an actor myself, but I realized I was my gift wasn't so much acting; it was about connecting people, bringing people together. And even when I was an actor, or even in other areas, I would be great at bringing people together. People, be producing people, and they would wind up working together and collaborating. And I realized this is something I want to do. And so that was like my natural progression was to kind of still support actors, still be around them, still advocate and empower them, but also connect in their jobs. That's what kind of led me down the route of being a talent agent.
Oh, cool. What types of services do you provide then?
Well, I work as an a typical employment agent would negotiate a contract, day to day job searching activities, and that's what I do as a talent agent. So my really by if you look at my paper, my role is to help my actors find employment, and that's what really I do on a day-to-day basis. However, I've also through the years become like their coach, their advocate. So it's not just finding them work, but it's trying to provide as much support as I can.
Do a lot of them kind of struggle with the like performance anxiety and self sabotaging thoughts and everything?
It's more self-sabotage, and I think a lot of times the performance anxiety comes in because it's a very competitive industry and it's a very overly saturated industry, especially New York or if you're in New York or LA, which is kind of like the actor capitals or like really the hubs for in the United States is New York and LA and Atlanta. But there's so many more actors than there are job opportunities. So there's literally hundreds of thousands of actors with only a handful of jobs. So only 2 or 3% are going to be working at a given moment. The other 97, 98% are going to be out of work constantly. And that can add a lot of stress. That can add a lot of frustration, which then can erode over time and start creating massive amounts of self doubt, fear, and then that can even lead to self-sabotaging behavior. But there was a good number of it that I noticed when I was first starting out, especially a lot of actors were self-sabotaging, which means like getting in their own way and blocking their self for success. And that was like the biggest thing, that I noticed. And that's why I really started to study wanted to study this professionally to figure out what was really going on. And if there's a way to help. And it's a problem, and even other people in their industry would talk a lot about how actors get in their own way. And it's not just actors; it's really a lot. Everybody does it at some level. And I would imagine in your case, athletes, but also uh, uh, executives, salespeople, CEOs can sometimes get in their own way, and so it's a problem that needs to be addressed. And it's a sneaky problem because most people don't realize they're doing it because it's an unconscious behavior.
Yeah. How has NLP and hypnosis helped you with getting people to overcome roadblocks and everything?
Because it's all about working with limiting beliefs and sometimes challenging the programming that they received growing up. So maybe they grew up with a very critical parent or teacher that kind of installed a limiting belief. So a limiting belief could be that you're not that good enough, or success is like with it, out of your reach. And maybe that wasn't exactly the words directly, but a lot of times your mind interprets that as fact, and therefore you kind of run around the notion in your head of either success has got to be, or I must suffer for my art, or for my whatever it is you're trying to achieve. And what happens there is you start having a really tough time, but it's your own doing. It's your own inner critic. So sometimes it's all about changing that inner critic
Yeah.
and getting that critic to kind of come up with new ways of acting and being, so that it can really help you move forward and break out of those blocks that are holding you back.
What types of psychological roadblocks have you helped your performers overcome?
Um, Psychological roadblocks could be fear of success, fear of failure. A whole host of things can happen. You know, even that imposter syndrome sometimes coming up. I think I lost you for a second. But these are things that can really add up over time. is, again, a lot of the self-doubt can in there. So those are some of the roadblocks that can come in, or some of the barriers that can often appear. And these are things over time. So again, you could grow up in a household where, oh, you're told you're not good enough, and or that you're not that successful, and then if you internalize that, that can be a roadblock and can hold you back. And over time, that can really cause you to choke up, metaphorically, when an important match comes in, an important audition, because you start bringing up these negative thoughts like, I'm just not good enough, I can't do this. So the inner critic, now the inner critic is designed to protect us by nature, but it can sometimes be flawed, the inner critic, where it's going in overprotective mode. So the one thing that we can work, again, this is where hypnosis and NLP comes in, is to kind of really reframe that inner critic, or temper it down, or lower the temperature of the inner critic so it's not holding us back. But definitely the inner critic is a major roadblock, and fear.
Hmm. So, what are some signs that you've seen when people exhibit like fear of success and that self-sabotaging behaviors?
Yeah, well, it's very subtle, because again, nobody really realizes they're doing this. It's not like, oh, hey, I have fear of success today, and someone's going to come out and say that for outright. But there could be a whole host of issues there. It could just be like, if somebody, they're almost there, but they don't prepare well. Like to give you an example of an athlete, let's say the athlete has trained, they practice, and they really know the drills and everything, but just something when they're on the field, they make a mistake, they make a lapse of judgment, and then therefore they wind up losing the game, or they don't score. And when you take a step back, they even know afterwards it happened. Oh, I made this mistake. Oh, I made this foolish error. What did I do? This was foolish of me. I should know better. And so these little, like, they appear on the surface careless because it's like very small mistakes that could easily been avoidable. And a lot of times that could be fear kicking in. And so you have to start looking for like subtle little mistakes that are doing that. Maybe taking them out of the winning, like prevent them from winning, or preventing them from succeeding. And that's just anything. Or like in my case with the actor who either showed up late to the audition, doesn't prepare fully for the audition. They're going through the motions of going to the audition, applying for the audition. But when they get the audition, it's like they're not pulling what they can. And that's with anybody. It's like you start noticing that they're almost there, but they're not completely there. That they're like within reach, but they're not putting the best foot forward. So that's how you would start to see that, maybe there's some blocks happening, which could be, again, fear of success, imposter syndrome, which are heavily related. But that could be your first indication that something is wrong, when you're seeing people within almost within reach of that goal or that success, but they just do something that really holds them back.
Yeah. How do you suggest people combat that if they notice that in themselves? What are some quick
Well, I would
tips?
take a stock of what's going on. How do you really feel? What's your state? What's your emotional state? Because our emotional state is so important. What's your emotional state going into this? Are you stressed out? Is something bothering you? And that would be the first thing, is to recognize that this is happening and try to figure out on a deeper level what's going on here. And is there a fear? What is the fear of? Now, again, it may not consciously know that it's fear of success, but some people don't like being in the spotlight, even though they want to be, but getting in the spotlight can be scary. being successful can be scary because that means your life is going to change. That means life is going to be different. There may be new pressures, there may be new obligations. Relationships may change in your life because when you're successful, some people in your life, whether it's friends, partners, or family members, may be slightly sometimes threatened by your success.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So, is there any other like tips, that like ways to overcome some of that besides just like looking
Well,
at your emotions?
working through your emotions and then addressing any fears that come in, addressing, looking at fear, looking at failure as feedback. Like there's no such thing as failure, only feedback. So it's like teaching people how to fail forward, which means if you fail once or twice, well, and that means that you're closer to success. So reframing failure as success is important, and really just leaning, capitalizing on initial successes prior to whatever it is you're setting out to do. What have you accomplished so far? Because most people underestimate their strength or their capability or really how successful they really are. They tend to delete that information. They distort the bad, things or the negative things and kind of blow those out of proportion and downplay the good things. So the important thing is to reflect on what is it that you're good at and what good things have you accomplished in the past. And when you can capitalize on that, what you can really show or educate yourself is like, look, I'm not a failure. I've accomplished this or these
Yeah.
tasks. And I mean, and not to get like too, esoteric, but you survived. That's an accomplishment each day. So start looking at your accomplishments first. That would be the biggest way to help somebody or to go through this is first take what you're really good at because everybody's good at something. We just may not see it at the moment. We're all good at something.
Yeah. How much most do you see kind of can't reframe failure and fail forward? How many people do you see just still sabotage themselves because they just can't get over the failure part?
Well, again, it's looking at failure as feedback. Look at it as we're learning. As human beings and as living animals, we have to learn. So it's all about reframing. Like these are learning experiences. These are learning opportunities for you. So they're not. It's not about like you didn't do this, you do that. You learned something important because now when you apply it in the next
Yeah.
situation, you have knowledge already of what maybe didn't work or what system didn't work. So now you can apply that the next time you're setting out to execute a task. That okay, this is information that I can use. This I tried it this way. It didn't necessarily go the way I wanted to, but that's good information. Now let me try something different. And it's just over time. It's about being persistent and not doing this. I mean, as a kid, after a while, you're
Yeah.
going to be able to ride the bike again.
Yeah. I've seen like a lot of athletes I work with. I mean, they can't get over that part of the failure part. They think they should be successful right away, and kind of how do you probably put it? Unrealistic expectations of how quick they can get to that goal.
Yeah, and it's more about teaching them the process rather than the outcome. Like think in process. Like a lot of people when they set goals, they want to get to A to Z immediately, but in order to finish A, you got to get to B, and then all the other letters in the alphabet first to get to Z. So if like your goal is to be like a pro player, it's going to take time. It's going to take discipline. It's going to take focus. It's going to take years of work and practice. Even the pro athletes today are practicing hours a day. whether they're on season or even off season. Yeah, I was reading an article that Michael Jordan, for instance, would make it a vow that he would shoot 5,000 hoops a day, whether it was off season or on season, just so that he didn't lose that momentum moving forward. So it takes a lot of hard work and perseverance.
Yeah.
And I think, just in school, because we kind of are conditioning ourselves to look at success as the end product, well, we should also be celebrating the process that we're going through and be more praising the process rather than, worrying about what the exact outcome is.
Yeah. Like, I think that society tends to glorify the outcomes more than the process, because all we usually see with athletes or even actors and actresses is the finished product. We don't see the struggle that went into everything.
Right. And the years of hard work. And that's when we talk about like praising, what we should be doing instead of praising like the outcome, which is a lot of parents and teachers do. Oh, you passed this grade. You work. You're so smart. You got 100. You're so smart. Great. It sounds great in theory, but what we should be doing is more praising the effort. Like, you worked hard on this, because even on the field, like, sometimes the other team may just be too strong and too fast, but the team, even though they may not have won at the end, they played their best. And so that should be celebrated rather than did they win or lose. And that's unfortunately just in society how we look at things. Did you win or lose?
Yeah. So, say you had a client who was struggling with self-doubt and needed a way to boost their confidence up. How would you go about doing that?
Well, I would then go reflect on their past successes and past wins. And most of the time we tend to downplay those or forget those initially. Just forget about all the past wins. So that would be the first thing to do. Like, look at all the past wins you've accomplished. Look at what you've accomplished so far. You can do this. It just takes a little bit of time. And so, again, going back to, like, with goal setting and smarter goal setting and more about, the process and getting better each day. And the next thing, if they're really beating themselves up, I would then take a stake into what it is exactly that they're not happy with. Be specific. Okay. Now let's develop a plan so you can become good in this. And do what are some daily actions you can take to get better at that?
Huh. That's kind of funny that you should talk like that, because when I'm doing building confidence up with athletes, that's the first place I start too is, hey, let's look at where you've been successful at first and show them, hey, you've accomplished stuff that other people haven't been able to do yet. You've been
Yeah.
successful before.
And that just teaches them that, look, success is already within you. The confidence is there. We just need to find it now and access it more, in a way. It's not like you don't have it, you have it. It's just it may be buried. So we need to dig a little bit and get there. And that's by
So,
reflecting on whatever it is in the past that they've done, whatever successes they've already done in the past, and then capitalizing on that success and celebrating that success already. Look at what you've done. Now, just take it moving forward. Because
yeah.
again, a lot of times we just underestimate what we've accomplished and downplay what we've accomplished.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think us as humans, we're always looking to for that next achievement and always chasing that next goal and trying to skip the process.
Right. And what we're doing is we're just forgetting that the process, and we're so focused again on outcome because that's how we're conditioned by society. Like win or lose, that's all that matters, according to society.
Yeah.
And what we need to be doing, and this is where it starts, really at home, is instilling the hard work aspect of things. Because even if you lose, if you gave it your all as an athlete, that should be rewarded because you did your best. Even in academics too, like when we're working with children and coaching them to do better in school, is again we're so focused on those A's and those end results that we need to be looking at the process more. So, did you do your best, even if you ended up with a C? But did you work hard for that C? Because it's better to work hard for that C than to work, half the effort for like an A minus. So, because when you work for something, when eventually you do get there, that success is going to be much more meaningful to you.
Yeah. I think that's why I think the process is so important because like the amount of effort that you put into it, it is so rewarding, that feeling when you finally reach that point. Like you said,
Mm-hmm.
you talk about the happy file in your book. Could you explain what that is and how it can boost self-esteem and motivation?
Sure. So the happy file is sort of, in a sense, like a gratitude journal. So you take a list, and this kind of goes back to what we were saying. It kind of leads into what we were talking about before. Every accomplishment you get, whether it's praise from a coach, a praise from a fellow player, or as an actor, praise for a performance from an acting coach, from another actor, or from an audience member. So you document all of these little wins. And a win is a win. It doesn't matter what it is. So you document this, every win, every achievement you document. And then it's sort of like your own little personal file. So when you start having this self-doubt creeping in, or this questioning, am I, doing the right thing? Is this for me? You pull out your happy file, and that will begin to remind you of what it is you're accomplishing, why you got into this in the first place.
That's an interesting concept you have them doing right there because there's so many times that like you'll just have a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's all you'll remember for like say that whole week is that one bad day instead of the 6 other good days that you had. But by journaling it and writing it everything down, you can kind of go back to it and look like, hey, it wasn't all bad. It's just one little moment.
Right. One little moment, or just like, someone gets 40 compliments in a day, and that's a lot. But the moment, maybe they'll get like one or two insults or something critical or scathing. And most of the time our brains are wired to go right to the negative immediately, focusing on that and almost negating uh, all of the good things that we've accomplished, or all the good things that we've done, because we're so focused on that one bad remark or that one critical statement that someone made, and that we're forgetting all the good things we've done.
Yeah. What's the difference between toxic high self esteem and healthy self esteem? And why is it important to be able to distinguish between the two?
Well, the end of the day, it's really all about humility and being humble. And that's the most important thing. The ability to be humble and have basic humility. So self-esteem is important. We need to believe in ourselves. We need to be confident, be okay with praising ourselves from time to time and celebrating our wins. The difference between toxic high self-esteem, you start to believe or act like you're better than everybody else. So it's like arrogance, being, so self-centered. The reason why why it's toxic is because your person like that is not going to be open to criticism or feedback. When you give them some type of critical feedback, even if it's designed to help them, they get really insulted very easily, and sometimes even lash out aggressively, like when you point out a mistake or an error that they might have made. Even though your intention is to make them better at what they do, they don't see it that way. And they start to see themselves better than everybody else. And the reason why it's linked to self sabotage is because you're not going to be open to feedback. And if you want to be successful in any endeavor, you have to be coachable. And so these people are not going to be coachable because they're going to be so threatened when you might have something constructive or critical or that goes against what they want to hear. Good coaching is always not about what you want to hear, it's what you need to hear.
Yeah. And I see this so much that, seeing both sides of this, where seeing some of the toxic, the arrogance part, and then seeing some that were very humble, and then you see some that they feel that, if they show that they have high self-esteem or confidence in their abilities, they're going to be perceived as arrogant.
Yeah, and that's would need to be addressed. That's a limiting belief right there, because what you can do is show you can be confident and humble at the same time, and you can be confident in yourself and then be building your teammates up or building other people in your community up too at the same time. It's like we're all winning together. And if you can develop that mindset, and that's one thing that I love about the actors in New York. The actors in New York are incredibly helpful to each other. That's one thing I've noticed in the past 21 years of doing this work is the actors really look out for one another. That's such a refreshing thing to see. Where they will, because I've had a lot of clients in my agency refer their acting colleagues or friends to me, and it's been a great feeling because what it shows me that actors are looking out for one another. And so the important thing with housing self-esteem, as this all ties in, is we can take the framework look we can all build up together. I'm successful, you're successful, and let's celebrate that.
Yeah. What are some techniques that you recommend for building up someone's self-esteem?
Well, again, number one is showing them what they've already accomplished. So, you already have the competence factor there. The next thing to do is the company that you keep is so important. Proximity is power. And that's what I'm quoting Tony Robbins and Jim Rohn on this. But the idea is that proximity is power. The people you hang out with will either empower you or disempower you. So it's very important to have a good peer group that builds you up and challenges you to become a better person, rather than 5 or 6 people that are always just complaining. Because when you're about to run a lot of complainers, it'll start to rub off on you.
Yeah. And I mean, I've been around some of them environments. I mean, that was my first step in my evolution as a person was, hey, I have to get away from all the negative people because I was a negative person myself. And for me to be happy, I had to escape all the negativity.
Absolutely, and that happens too. You just get it rubs off, and you just become negative yourself. You don't even realize you're doing it. Because most people that are negative, they don't see themselves as negative. It's not like, oh, hey, I'm negative today. It's when even if you point it out to them, they'll get defensive. Like, no, I'm just telling you the truth.
Yeah.
No, it's in a negative lens, and they think I'm just keeping it real, or I'm telling you the truth, or it is what it is, and this is what you'll often hear from people that are negative.
Yeah. Could you share a success story of people using these same techniques?
Sure. Well, I was working with this, this actress, and I still work with her now on my roster. But when I first met her at an acting studio, she's been was acting for 9 or 10 years. But off camera, her in real life, she had a very gravitas and very charismatic personality to her, which she still does. And at that time, she was vice president of a merchandise company of a department store, which is a relatively nice job to have. And it was because of her interpersonal skills. But when it came to acting, she was very shy, very self conscious, and very much hiding and playing it small. So her acting teacher worked with her, obviously, in losing her voice. But we kind of all myself kind of came in and kind of increased her confidence a bit, and really challenged her to adopt her outside of work personality to the roles that she was playing. And when she did that, she was able to book a lot more work. Consequently, I'm also been teaching, psychology for 20 something years too. One of my earlier semesters, I had a student who challenged me because I make it a point that class participation is important for all my classes. And in the beginning of the semester, one of my classes, I get this anonymous email, but I could kind of tell who it was by stating that they didn't think it was fair that I included class participation in the grade because students can be shy. And I already feel like that's telling me a lot about her automatically. So I then reframed it. Well, I'm like, well, then how can we learn from you? You have all this great knowledge and life experience, but if you sit there quiet, we're not going to benefit from that. Think about if everybody talked, how much more we can learn from this class. I didn't threaten her. I didn't like sit there and say, well, your grade's going to be affected. I turned it around because and realistically, class participation is usually 10 to 50% of the grade. That would have lowered her grade. But I didn't come in that approach with that approach because that wouldn't have worked. That would have had her retreat even more if I threatened her or acting impulse. I just kind of just threw it up and said, look at all I wonder what it would be like if everybody participated. You wouldn't want to just, inconvenience your classmates by not showing your point of view. That wouldn't be fair, right? So that was all I kind of said, in a nice way. At the end of the semester, she was one of the most vocal students I've ever had. It's just how you approach it's about empowering because she wanted the fact and the way I looked at this from a psychologist standpoint, the fact that she emailed me this was suggesting that she was looking for encouragement to participate already.
Yeah. I love it though. That's a great story of, just reframing something for somebody to get them to show that they had something to offer and kind of more of encouraging, like, hey, you have such a special light inside of you. Let it shine.
Right.
So you wrote the book Rise Above the Script. What inspired you to write it?
Well, inspired because I wanted to really look at, actors and self-sabotage. So as I said in the beginning of my, age and career, I was noticing this widespread incidence of actors self-sabotaging. So I wanted to figure out like what exactly is really happening here. And is not only we understand what can we do to help? What can we do to do that? And I'm still learning. I mean, it's not I don't claim to have 100% of the answers, but I do have a better understanding now. And again, a lot of it has to do with fear of success, imposter syndrome. So I kind of mentioned some ways to reframe things. And one of them is that, again, going back to the old failure is feedback. There's no such thing as failure, only feedback. And learning to fail forward. That was kind of like, and I talk about this in my book. And so it was really just a way to really help understand and help kind of address this issue because, even though it's, self-sabotaging actors is really not discussed that much. In small circles, yes, I want to make it a more larger circle of discussion.
Yeah. What was probably your biggest challenge you faced when you were writing it?
The biggest challenge was kind of being dealing with my own feelings of self-doubt. Are people going to read this? Um, and it's hard to be objective when it's your own work. You think again, either you're too critical or you think it's the best thing ever. So what I did to kind of counteract both sides of that. I went to 2 different rounds of editing with 2 different editors. So I was very thorough with this. And getting back the first draft with seeing so many red comments was a bit scary and a bit humbling because it was like, oh no. And then once I calmed down and then I looked at it again, realized, okay, there was a lot of great helpful information here. So it was a learning experience for me, and I one that I really enjoyed. I didn't think I would, but I really did enjoy it.
Hmm. What are the big 5 personality traits that you use?
Sure. So I did this for my PhD dissertation. So in the 80s, there was a wide known personality model that came out called the Big Five, which is openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, or agreeableness, and neuroticism. And those are really essentially 5 traits that we all share. We have varying degrees and different ranges of this, but there's 5 fundamental traits that describe human behavior, performance, especially. So with openness, do you have an open mind? Are you willing to try new things? Because very few people, a lot of people say they're open-minded, but they're not. Like they'll often do the same things or go to the rest. They may try out new restaurants, but they order the same thing on the menu every time. And that's not entirely be open. So you have to be somewhat open and open-minded. The next trait is conscientiousness. It refers to like your work ethic, your discipline, your focus. And that's one of the biggest predictors of life success is how conscientious you are. The more conscientious you are, the more successful you're going to be because the more you're going to work hard at it. And then you have extroversion. I'm not talking about necessarily being life of the party, but you need to be able to communicate with people. You need to be able to collaborate with people and not be threatened by that. To have open conversations, and you don't necessarily have to be these large life of the party types, but you should have the ability to connect to people. And then agreeableness is how coachable are you? How willing are you open to your feedback and learn from that feedback? Because as I said earlier, people with toxic high self-esteem are very low on agreeableness. They don't agree with, if you challenge them or you come up with an alternative view, they get really, offended. So people that are low on agreeableness are not going to like feedback. Whereas if you're higher in this, you're going to be more open to feedback and changing whatever it is based on mutual agreed feedback. And then neuroticism refers to your stress level. So if you score high in neuroticism, what that will tell me is that you're very prone to anxiety, that you're very prone to depression, that you get phased very easily. Whereas if you score lower on neuroticism, you tend to be more laid back and easygoing. Now, how this relates to self-sabotage, one theme that kept popping up in my dissertation, which makes a lot of sense now, is that if you have high neuroticism and low conscientiousness, meaning that you have a very poor work ethic along with being prone to anxiety and depression very easily, that's the perfect storm for self-sabotage.
Hmm. So just by knowing a few of these traits and everything, you kind of get a prediction of what their strengths and weaknesses are then.
Right. Just knowing where they fall in these 5 traits can tell me a lot about a person.
Huh. So do you have your clients take these tests and stuff to figure this out then?
Sometimes, or just by self-report. I mean, that's what I did for my dissertation. I actually had them take the 5-factor test that
Yeah.
measure that, so I can get where you're not just guessing. But even in my classes, I'll make my students take the test. It's online. It's free, and they'll report back on their results. And the one surprising thing with everybody is they overestimate how disciplined they really are.
Yeah.
Like most people will score, think I'm really conscientious, and they're really not, and they're a little shocked to see that.
Yeah,
Because
I think
most of
so.
us, without extra help, are kind of poor in conscientiousness. This is why we need calendars. This is why we need reminders and planning.
Yeah, I think a lot of us overestimate our abilities at times too, and because there's a such a level, our level of self awareness is so low at times.
Oh yeah,
We like we real a lot of people really do not know themselves and know their strengths and weaknesses.
and that's the first thing. If you really want to optimize your life, you need to know your strengths and your weaknesses.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, that was one of the first areas when I started making changes in my own life. That was the first area I looked at was the self awareness part. Is what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses?
Hmm.
And just being brutally honest with yourself, even though you didn't like it.
It's not going to be easy to face the
No.
first time. Nobody. It's not easy at all. But it's not meant to be. It's meant to be informative. It's meant to be a learning experience.
Yeah.
And we're all humans, so there's no need to beat yourself up. All of us have flaws. Every single one of us has faults.
Yeah. How can people get a hold of you?
So if they want to get a hold of me, you can find me on like Instagram and LinkedIn. You can also go to my website, albertbermonti.com. And it's very, very, very easy to get a hold of me. And I'd love to connect with people.
Yeah, I'll put all that in the show notes so people can reach out to you too.
Sure.
Is there
Absolutely. Let's
anything?
continue the conversation with everybody.
Yeah. Is there anything we haven't covered that you'd like to talk about?
Um, really, I guess, the goal of coaching, and one thing I will just kind of leave with this: we all have what we need within us to succeed. A lot of times we just get conditioned to ignore it or to forget how to access it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's what I kind of tell a lot of the athletes I work with is like when they start having success, I'm like, dude, that was in you at all the whole time. I didn't do anything, just help you unlock it. That was already inside you. It was just
Yes.
helping you get past them barriers.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what really a good coach does is we help people tap into their own inner wisdom and their inner strength.
Yeah. I said that's probably my favorite part is just watching them eyes just like light up when they finally figured it out.
When it finally connects and lands, like,
Yeah.
wow, I can do this.
Yes. That's the best part. Okay, final question. What is one piece of advice you'd like to leave our listeners with about overcoming adversity?
The only way is through it. So lean into it. Keep keep being persistent. Persistence will pay off. So with the adversity, just keep trying. And maybe there's another way of trying it, but whatever you do, do not give up.
Great advice. Like as you can tell my name through the fire. That's pretty much what it's all about right there is you got to go
Yes.
through it. You can't run from it. Great
Right.
advice. Albert, hey, I can't thank you enough for coming on here and sharing your insight and wisdom. It's like just hearing you talk. I mean, and you see how much the mindset plays. Like it's pretty much the exact same thing
Oh
for
yeah.
athletes and like
Hmm.
actors and actresses.
Right.
You see how it's so connected it is, and we share a lot of similarities in how we go about doing things.
Absolutely, 100%.
Well, thank you again for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, guys, that's going to be all the time we have here today. Remember, the only way to get what you want is go through the fire.